When I returned from my business trip, my daughter hugged me crying. "What's wrong? Dad has." The story Emery finally shared after she stopped crying was something I had never even imagined. If what Emery said was true, I couldn't rest until my husband and that person faced the consequences they deserved. This was also about protecting our dignity, mine and Emery's. My name is Natalia. I'm a 35-year-old office worker. My husband, Parker, is 4 years senior to me and is an office worker. We met while working at the same company and have been married for 15 years. We have a daughter, Emery, who just turned 12 and is about to start at a private middle school this spring. Though both of us are busy with work, the three of us are living a peaceful life. However, there is just one thing that troubles me: the relationship with my Mill, who lives about a 30-minute drive from our house. My in-laws had a reverse dowry marriage, where the groom moved into the bride's family home. They lives in the house Mill grew up in. Mill's family boasts a lineage of nobility, which she is quite proud of. Therefore, she has always said that someone of unknown and humble background like me isn't the kind of deal her family would normally accept. Both my Phil and Parker are just regular employees now, but they come from a different background than mine. My Mill was opposed to our marriage because of her family status, but with the help of my Phil, who said, "My son chose her," we were able to get married. I was constantly anxious hearing such things before our marriage, and initially, at Parker's request, we lived together. However, even while living together, if I cooked, Mill would throw it away without eating, saying, "Oh, I hate it. Something made by a lowly person just doesn't sit well with my taste." And if she noticed that my way of doing household chores was different, she'd burst out in anger. Really, this is what happens when you marry a girl from an uneducated family. Those were our daily struggles. A few months into living together, an incident occurred where money disappeared from Mill's purse. "There's a thief in this house. That can't be right. Just look a little harder." "No. It must have been Natalia who stole it." "Stop it. There's no way Natalia would do such a thing. There's no other thief in this house but this poorly raised woman." Mill had always suspected me from the start and directed her anger at me. Of course, I denied any wrongdoing, and both Parker and Phil defended me, but Mill kept saying, "I can feel safe with a thief in the house." After almost a year of being constantly accused of theft and losing jewelry, I finally broke down mentally. I started visiting a psychiatrist, who advised me to move out from the household. I begged Parker, "I'm going back to work, so please let's move out." After repeatedly pleading, my husband agreed to move out if it would make me feel better. Even after moving out, just hearing Parker talk on the phone with Mill would make my heart race, but I tried to be content that we weren't living together. 6 months after moving out, my kind Phil passed away. At the funeral, where I attended his family, there was no seat arranged for me in the family area. Where should Natalia sit? I don't know. Maybe she should just sit over there if she's not really family. Okay, understood. Natalia. It's Phil's final farewell, isn't it? Don't worry about me. Even if it was just an act of harassment against my decision to move out, what a way to treat me. But I decided to think about it. I wasn't kicked out of the funeral hall. Yes, being able to properly say goodbye to Phil, who always stood by my side, was enough for me. Half a year later, it was 12 years ago when I gave birth to Emery. The first thing Mill did when she visited the hospital where I was admitted for childbirth was to tickle Emery's feet. Emery laughed out loud as her soles were tickled. Humph. I'm relieved to see her nerves are intact. How can you say such a thing? To think you gave birth to a girl first. What a useless deal. Mill left these words behind and walked out of the room. There were no words of congratulations. It was an event that made me feel even more disgusted with Mill, not just towards me but towards Emery as well. Mill continued to casually say to Emery, "You come from a bad lineage," and discriminated against her compared to my SIL's kids, so Emery didn't grow fond of her grandmother much. "It's because you keep acting like this to Mom, that's why Emery doesn't get close to her." Do you really think so? Shouldn't you first scold someone who goes as far as to insult her own grandchild about bad lineage? It would all be fine if you were willing to make an effort. I can't anymore. I'd rather not interact as much as possible. Because I tried to avoid Mill as much as possible, we didn't meet except at weddings and funerals, but even after more than 10 years, my body still trembles at the thought of meeting Mill. It was an impossible request to reach out to someone my body and mind so vehemently rejected. Therefore, maintaining a life with the three of us was my current wish. However, as soon as it was decided that Emery would attend a private middle school, Mill started contacting us more frequently. It was Emery's choice to advance her education, but once Mill learned that it was a prestigious middle school, she was pleased, saying, as expected of my granddaughter. To Mill, Emery went from a child of bad lineage to a granddaughter to be proud of. Emery and I were dumbfounded by Mill's quick change of heart, but Parker probably thought, finally, my wife and daughter are recognized by my mother. He started saying more frequently, Mom is going to buy Emery some new shoes. Would you like to go out shopping now? Shoes. Sorry, but the school requires specific shoes, and we don't really need anything for the weekends. Wouldn't it be nice to have a meal with Mom once in a while? I'm sorry. I'd rather not. If you want to go out to eat, could you and Mill go? Can you tell her maybe next time? When will that next time be? Emery, you're going, right? If Mom's not going, I'm okay. I also have to study for the test to determine my classes after I start school. What the hell, you two? Enough. Perhaps I just need to endure a few hours. I understand that she is his only mother and important to him, but recalling everything that has happened makes it difficult for me to reach out. How much longer until I can deal with Mill again? It was hard to answer my husband even on things I didn't know myself. Then one day, I had to go on a business trip for 5 days. Emery could make simple meals herself, so I wasn't worried about her food, but I was concerned about leaving her alone at home when Parker worked late. It's okay, you'll call me at night, right? Yes, of course, I'll call every night, but make sure you lock the doors, okay? I got it. I entrusted Emery's care to Parker and left for my business trip. During the trip, I would call Emery as soon as I checked into the hotel every night. When I called Emery, Parker was always out, but she seemed to be doing well otherwise. The next day, my work finished earlier than expected, and I told Emery I would be home the next day. However, I noticed something odd about Emery. Is something wrong? No. I'm just waiting for Mom to come back. Come home soon. Hearing her desperate plea, I instantly felt uneasy. Concerned about Emery, I took the first train home in the morning and decided to go straight home. When I got home, Emery had just finished her classes for the morning and had come home. I'm home, Mom. Emery unusually hugged me, seeming relieved by my return. What's up? Feeling clingy? Let's have a meal for now, shall we? Yay. While I was preparing the meal, Emery kept coming close as if she wanted to say something, then sighed deeply and walked away repeatedly. When I set the food on the table, Emery sat down but seemed lost in thought and didn't start eating. What's wrong? When I asked, Emery choked up and started crying. Dad has. It was no longer a time for dinner, so I decided to calm her down and listen. Take your time and tell me when you're calm. Okay. Actually, the day you left for your business trip, Grandma came to our house. She said she'd be staying for a while. I didn't mind much because she wasn't around during the day, and she only came back at night with Dad. But on the third night after Grandma arrived, I overheard Dad and Grandma talking. What were they talking about? Dad had been set up by Grandma for a matchmaking appointment 6 months ago. Matchmaking is for people who want to marry, right? It's weird because Dad is married to you, isn't it? Yes, that's right. He started dating the woman from the matchmaking. They were talking about divorcing you and marrying her. So, that's what they were talking about. Mill had always opposed our marriage, and she would likely agree to our divorce. Perhaps Parker, feeling alone without aligning with Mill and dissatisfied with me, had started considering divorce. And last night, Dad brought that woman from the matchmaking home. He said, "This is your new mom." And then, I said, "My mom is the only mom I have," but both of them got angry, saying, "A woman of such bad lineage is not a mother." They were both really scary. Emery started crying again, and I hugged her tightly. Dad said he was going to change the locks before you came back to kick you out. I'm so glad you came back before Dad did. So, you've had a tough time while I was gone. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, Mom. As Emery finished speaking, I heard the front door open. Hey, is Emery back? I'm having the locksmith come over to change the locks, so give me your key to the front door. As he said this, Parker walked into the living room where we were sitting. Seeing me sitting on the sofa, Parker gasped, "WHY? Weren't you supposed to be on a business trip until tomorrow? I finished work early." "So you did. Well, good job." With that, Parker quickly left the living room, probably to call Mill. Seeing him enter his room, I took Emery's hand, and we left the house. It was a house registered in Parker's name. If he wanted to change the locks to kick me out, he could do as he pleased. I don't claim there were no faults on my part in our 15 years of marriage. Some people might have endured similar circumstances through patience and perseverance. I think my issues with Mill were largely due to my own weakness. However, I could not forgive the fact that, without formally filing for divorce, he suddenly introduced a stranger as the new mother to our impressionable daughter, and chose such a frightening approach. I went back to my parents' house and decided to have a lawyer handle the divorce proceedings. Parker and Mill might have wished for this divorce, but they demanded Emery back. Emery was only 12 years old. She couldn't choose her custodian herself. However, I was earning an income as a full-time employee, just like Parker. I decided to fight it head-on. The divorce negotiations through our lawyers didn't settle, and the case dragged into divorce mediation. While the trigger for the marital breakdown was indeed my poor relationship with Mill, I had evidence such as diaries I kept during our cohabitation, and records of visiting a psychiatrist, proving I was mentally cornered. Although my husband was appreciated that he had been helpful to me in agreeing to move out, his disloyalty to me, such as arranging and starting a relationship with another woman during our marriage, was deemed undisputed. The mediator was also able to consider Emery's wishes, even though she was under 15 years old. Emery expressed a desire to live with me due to Parker's dishonesty and being continuously called a granddaughter of bad lineage by Mill. Thus, the mediation acknowledged that I would be the custodian. Even if we have to go to court, Mill insisted, but Parker seemed to have given up on custody. Not only from Parker but also from Mill, I received alimony as part of our divorce settlement. We also decided to get a lump sum for child support for Emery, which amounted to a substantial sum. Furthermore, since Parker's matchmaking partner knew he was already married and still pursued the relationship, I demanded alimony from her too. I heard she left Parker, who only had his family's prestige to boast about. Mill cursed me, such a greedy woman. After Parker's plans to remarry were ruined, but considering the future, I decided to take what was available. Once everything was over, it all seemed like a simple tale. Thinking back to the last time I saw Mill at the family court, I wonder why I spent so many days afraid of such a small woman. Afterward, Mill lost the granddaughter she had bragged about attending a prestigious middle school, and her reputation for mistreating her DIL became well known around the neighborhood. And more, her imprudence in introducing a married son to a match also became a topic of gossip, and she could no longer live in the house she grew up in. She gave up her house and moved in with Parker, but he quit his job because he too felt uncomfortable at the company after this incident. So, I heard their lifestyle became very modest. Then, I started a new life in a new environment with Emery. My job is going well, and although it sometimes places a burden on Emery, we support each other. I'm determined to see her through to independence. And this time, I really want to live my own life properly.